So this is a practice test that we're going to have for the actual test Friday. So on this first part, this is almost exactly like the test. The only difference is that this is open response compared to the actual test, which is multiple choice. It says determine whether each equation is linear. Okay, there's certain details that make it non-linear. For example, if you have a fraction with a variable in the denominator, that would mess it up. Okay, you can't multiply two variables, or you can't have a variable with an exponent on it. So number one, you want to determine if it's linear. So is that linear?
No.
That's right. You would just say no, it's not linear, or non-linear.
Can you just put non-linear?
On the multiple choice, they just put no. Okay? And again, this is exactly like the test. So there's 3 questions like this on the practice test. There's going to be 3 questions like this on the actual test. Question is this one linear? What do you guys say?
Yes.
That one's definitely linear because you don't have x times y. You don't have x or y in the denominator of a fraction. You don't have any exponents on variables. So this one is yes, it is linear. But in addition to that, let's look at our instructions. It says, if yes, write the equation in standard form and determine the x and y intercepts. So we need to remember what standard form is. What is standard form? Capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C, where A, B, and C are just numbers, no fractions, no decimals. So this one, since it is a linear equation, I need to rewrite it in terms of AX plus BY equals C. So what do I need to get rid of? What do I need to get rid of if I want the x's and the y's on the left side of the equal sign? I need to get rid of that negative 4x. So we're going to get rid of that negative 4x by doing the opposite, plus 4x. That'll cancel it out. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. And obviously, I'm going to add the 4x to the 8x because that's the only actual term that you could actually add it to. So 8 plus 4 is 12. So yes, it's linear, but I need to continue working. I'll have a 12x plus 3y equals negative 9. So the first part of our answer is yes, it is linear. The second part of our answer is rewriting it in standard form. So some of us think that this is in standard form. Now, you're not going to see, that's not the best answer. And the reason for that is, on the multiple choice answers, they're going to want to write this as simple as possible. And as you could see, there's a 12, a 3, and a 9. So it's all divisible by what? It's all divisible by 3. So to make this equation look nicer, they're actually going to divide everything by 3. They're going to divide everything by 3. So yes, it's linear. What is the actual simplest standard form equation? It's going to be 4x plus 1y equals negative 3. So on your multiple choice answer, let's say it's option A, it's going to say yes, it is linear. And then it says write it in standard form. There it is. And then after that, it says state the x and the y intercepts. So on the multiple choice, they just write x, y, and that's what they mean by x and y intercepts. So what kind of work do we need to do to find these x and y intercepts? Well, you're going to write down x int, y int, squiggly line separating the work. To find the x-intercept, we do what? You set y equal to 0. To find the y-intercept, you do what? Set x equal to 0. And of course, I usually put this in a cloud. Just, that's what you need to know. To find the x-intercept, you have to set y equal to 0. To find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0. So you take this standard form equation, and for the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0. There's y. It's going to read 4x plus 0 equals negative 3. And of course, when you solve this thing, you just have 4x equals negative 3. So you're going to have to divide both sides by 4. So that means that your x is negative 3/4. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your x-intercept value. Okay? So on your x-intercept value, on the continuation of this answer over here, on the multiple choice answer, that you're going to see your x-intercept will be negative 3/4. Now let's find the y-intercept value. How do you do that? You set x equal to 0. So here's my standard form equation. Let's set x equal to 0. It's going to read 4 times 0 plus y equals negative 3. So when we plug in the 0 right into the x, we will see that we end up with 4 times 0. That just disappears. You end up with y equals negative 3, and that's your y-intercept. So the y-intercept is negative 3. That's the exact organization that you're going to see the multiple choice answer. Yes or no, if it's linear. If it is a yes, you have to take your equation and rewrite it in standard form. Capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C. You want to, in simplest form, so you want to reduce everything by 3, or divide everything by 3 if possible, or reduce everything by 2 if possible. Maybe you can't reduce, so that would be in standard form. But right here, 12, 3, and 9 all have a multiple of 3 in common. So you write it in simplest form, standard form. And then you find the x-intercept by setting y equal to 0. You find the y-intercept by setting x equal to 0. And those are your two answers right there. The x-intercept is negative 3/4. The y-intercept is negative 3. And there will be 3 of these on tomorrow's Friday's 20 question test. So that's 15% of your grade. Let's look at this last one. Is this one linear? Do you have x times y? No. So far it is linear. Do you have anything divided by x or anything divided by y? No. You have fractions, but none of them are divided. This is divided by 3. This is divided by 5. That's fine. That's linear. There are no exponents, so this is definitely yes, it is linear. Yes, it's linear. After you know yes, it's linear, then you got to change it into standard form. What is standard form? Standard form is x's and y's on the left side, but the capital AX and the capital BY and the capital C mean that there's no what? No fractions, no decimals. So I have fractions here, don't I? I do not want fractions. What am I going to do? Multiply everything by what? If you want to multiply everything by 3 to get rid of the 3, go for it. So put a times 3 here, a times 3 there, a times 3 over here. When you multiply, the 3's cancel. You end up with a nice, beautiful x, no more fraction, and that's what you want on standard form. Now over here, the 3 and the 5, they do not cancel. They're not like terms. So you actually have to multiply 3 times y up here. So you will have the x, you will have a minus, but up on top, you're going to have a 3y now. And on the bottom, you still have the 5. You still have the equal sign, and 1 times 3 is 3. So you got rid of one fraction. You still need to get rid of the other by multiplying everything by 5. So if you go times 5, times 5, times 5, you will end up with 5x. The 5's do cancel. You end up with a minus 3y equals 15. So that's your answer. That's in standard form right there. You cannot divide everything by a certain value, right? If you're thinking, oh, I could reduce everything by 5. No, you can't. This divides by 5, but this doesn't, and this does. So you can't simplify that any further. That's as good as a standard form equation could get. So the first part of your answer, is it linear? The first part is yes. Second part of your answer, what is a standard form equation? Well, that is right here. The next part of your answer is, what are the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts? They write it as this, x and y. So you need to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And how do you find the x-intercept? You set y equal to 0. And how do we find the y-intercept? You set x equal to 0. So when you do this math, it's going to read 5x minus 3 times 0 equals 15 when you set y equal to 0. So let's do that. And when you solve this, it's pretty easy because the 3 times 0, the negative 3 times 0, that disappears. So you really just have 5x equals 15, which means x equals 3. That's your x-intercept value. It's going to cross the x-axis at 3. So on your multiple choice answer, you should have the x with the colon and then a 3 right there. Okay. Now for your y-intercept, you're going to set x equal to 0. Here's x, put a 0 right there, and it'll read 5 times 0 minus 3y equals 15. So 5 times 0, that's just 0. So you really just have a negative 3y equals 15. So you're going to have to divide by negative 3 and divide by negative 3, and you'll get your y-intercept value of negative 5. So your y-intercept's negative 5. So this is the way your answer will appear on the multiple choice. It's going to say yes, it's going to have your standard form equation, and it's going to have your x and y-intercepts written like that. Let's take a look at the next part of the practice test. There's going to be 3 questions, question 4, 5, and 6 on the test. They're going to give you graphs, and all you have to do is state the slope, the rise and the run. So let's take a look at number 4. We want to find the slope. And what we need to know is that the slope is a fraction. It's rise over run. The rise could be positive, or is positive if it's going up. But if it's going down, it's negative. Now the run, you're always going to look at lines from left to right. So the run is always going to be positive. So this is something that we need to understand, something that we really need to know by Friday. If you don't know this, you're not going to be able to pass this test. Slope is rise over run. And we always look at lines from left to right so that the run's always positive. You always want a positive number on the bottom. So let's look at this line from left to right. Is it going up or is it going down? It's going down. So that means we have a negative rise. So how far do you go down from here to here? You go down 1 unit, 2 units, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So it's down 6. So the rise on the slope, the rise is -6 up on top. And the run, after you go down 6, how many do you run?
2.
You run 2. So your fraction for slope is -6 over 2. Now we all know that -6 over 2 is really what? -3 or -3 over 1. But anyways, this is your slope. That's all you have to do on 3 of these questions out of the 20. Easy points right here. If it's visually shown to you, it's really easy to calculate your rise over run. So right here, from here to here, how much am I rising?
1.
Or am I dropping?
Rising.
Rising. So how much do I go up? 1. How much do I run? 1, 2, 3. So what is my slope right there, guys? M equals rise 1, run 3, 1/3. Easy. Let's take a look at this one right here. This one's weird. From here to here, am I from left to right? Am I going up or am I going down? Down. So obviously it's going to be a negative rise, but how much of a negative rise do you have?
3.
3. Check it out. 1, 2, 3. How much do you run? 2. So what is your slope? M equals down 3
+2.
over 2. +2. That's right.
Crazy.
Easy stuff. Let's take a look at this one over here. What kind of slope is this if it's perfectly vertical?
0. 2. 0.
How much do you rise? Let's say from
1.
this point to this point, how much do you rise? 2. How much do you run? 0. So if you did have 2 over 0 and 0's underneath,
Is it undefined?
it's undefined. Undi. Underneath, undefined. So this line has an undefined slope. M equals undefined. It's simple. It's so steep that it's perfectly vertical. It's undefined. Now, if you look at this one over here, whoops. This one right here, it's a totally flat line. So what kind of slope do we have right here?
0.
M equals 0. Why? Because it's not steep at all. It's just flat, like the floor. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the next portion of our test. And down here, they want us to find the slope, and they don't give you a graph. You need to do it algebraically. So to find the slope algebraically, you need to know the slope formula. You need to have that in your head right there. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And on top of knowing the formula, you need to be able to identify your y2 and your y1. And that's pretty easy. Every coordinate is an x and a y value. And your first point, you're going to put a 1 on each of those. And your second point, you're going to put a 2 on each of those. Now, on top of knowing which one's your x1 and your y1, you need to know how to use the formula. To use the formula, I would always start out with this. M equals the division bar and the subtractions. That way you don't get confused. And then you say, okay, what is my y2 value? My y2 value is -6. So that goes up here on the top left. So that is a negative 6 up there. My y1 value is 2, and that goes right here. So I put a 2 right there. My x2 value is 6, and my x1 value is 5. I hope you guys see that. And then you do the math. Up on top, negative 6, take away 2, that is negative 8. On the bottom, 6 take away 5 is positive 1. So what is my slope right here? M is just negative 8. Let's try another. Number 8. Let's label the coordinates. x1, y1, x2, y2. Let's start our formula. M equals division bar subtractions. Let's plug in our y2 value, which is 9, our y1 value, which is 4, our x2 value, which is negative 3, and our x1 value, which is negative 3. You could clearly see that there's a minus minus at the bottom, which has to change the plus plus. So what do we end up with? On top, we have 5. On the bottom, we have 0. And if 0 is underneath, your slope is undefined. Let's try number 9. So here's number 9. Again, you're going to label your coordinates x1, y1, x2, y2. You're going to start your formula. M equals division, subtraction. Plug in your y2 value, which is 7. Plug in your y1 value, which is 7. Your x2 value is negative 5. Your x1 value is negative 2. The minus minus changes the plus plus. And on the numerator, you have 7 take away 7. That is 0 up on top. And on the bottom, negative 5 plus 2, that's negative 3. 0 divided by any number is 0. So M equals 0 in this case. Number 10 is so easy that people will get confused. You just want to find the x and the y-intercepts. So you could write it as the x-intercept is what?
0, 2, negative 2.
You could say the x-intercept's negative 2. Or you could also give it as a coordinate, negative 2, 0. Because the x-intercept, here's your x-axis, it crosses right here. That's the location, negative 2, 0. Or you could say x-intercept is negative 2. What's the y-intercept?
Negative 4.
Y-int is negative 4. Or you could write it as a coordinate, 0, negative 4. Okay? Let's move on. Let's try another one. What's the x? Oh, here's an interesting one. What's the x-intercept on this one? Or does it not cross the x-axis?
It does.
It does. What is the x-intercept?
It's 0, 1. Negative 1, 0.
It's negative 1, 0. Or you could just say your x-intercept is negative 1. Now, remember, here's your x, and we know that this will cross right there. Even though it doesn't show it, the pattern of the slope is up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, so that would be your next dot right there. So it would cross right there at the x value of negative 1. So your x-intercept is negative 1, or the coordinate negative 1, 0. What would your y-intercept be? Again, let's continue with the pattern of going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, go up 2 over 1. You're going to end up right there. And that will be your y-intercept of 2. So your y-intercept is 2. Or you could say that the coordinate's 0, 2. Because you go 0 on the x, 2 on the y. So you could extend this line using your slope pattern. That way you could actually visually see the x and the y-intercepts. Let's move on. Actually, let's not move on. This is already number 10. There's 20 questions, so we'll pick up this on the second video on number 11.